Welcome back to the Tim and Steve Show. I'm Tim Beard.
I'm Steve Morris.
Steve, Tim and Morris. Got the Chief on.
What's up?
What's going on?
Whole lot of stuff. What's going on with you?
Well, I offended Steve. I called him timid.
Why?
Well, because we're going to do hot takes, so it's just me when I go off on things that are I'm not politically correct in any way whatsoever. So Steve's kind of like, I got to save face too. So I use the word timid. He was upset by it.
Well, there's certain things that just as a retired
military
guy that, whether or not I agree or disagree with him, I probably shouldn't be up here pontificating. And then also, even though it's all our own personal opinions, I am on the school board, so...
Yeah, you feel like you represent, right?
Yeah, so, some certain things, it's kind of hard to, to have a spirited debate and then not also come across as someone who doesn't, care about people or feelings or...
If you're on the school board, I feel like you should care. Like, that should be the baseline, right?
Right, yeah, so I do, right? Or I wouldn't have ran.
Right.
So, and Tim does too, but at the same time, he is emotionally driven sometimes, whereas I like to think about things before
analytical.
I start talking about them. And
he reacts and you respond.
Right. That's a good way of looking at it.
This is why we're such good friends, because I offended him, and now he's defending me. See? Look at this. Aw.
Speaking of school board, I heard that you guys named your next superintendent.
We did.
I like her.
That's good. So you have positive...
I do, yeah. Positive experiences with her, yeah. Donna Magoon
Magoon.
from Claremont. Well, she's not there now, but she had been there. Yeah, I think she's a really good person. I never worked with her, so I can't comment on that. But, she's a hard worker. She was definitely well-liked by staff and community members, so I hope she works out good here.
Check the box.
Works out well.
Stamp of approval right there. It makes me feel better.
That's good. Yeah, I appreciate
And I don't want to hedge and say,
right.
but, I have to hedge a little bit because, like I said, I've not worked with Donna, and but from my perspective, I thought that she was good for our community, and she's just a good person. Her husband's a state trooper who I've had some interactions with here since I've been in Newport, and I chatted with him about her, and she's a really, really hard worker, and she's got like education and students are like at heart, and I think it is for everybody, but she definitely wants what's right for the kids. So
that was the impression that I got.
Yep.
Spot on.
Where is she now? Over in the Concord area, maybe?
Milford.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yep, Milford.
So we're lucky to have her.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited to have a new person come in, different perspective, and we all know what the goal is here, and she's obviously aware of that. So that's very promising that she's going to work for this town and make the school better or do her best, obviously. So it's good.
Speaking of a new person coming in and a new perspective and goals and stuff like that, it's been making me think, not necessarily just Donna, but just sort of in general, because I'm really starting to feel like I'm getting my feet on the ground. It's been 2+ years. When you first get there, there's these expectations, and maybe we place those own expectations on ourselves. But I think other people have expectations that they place on you, or certainly that I have felt when I started here about, we want improvement, we want things changed, and, maybe we want to go in a different direction or whatever the case may be. There's just expectations, right? And I feel like it takes a little while to sort of become inculcated in the community and really understand what the community is about and what direction to go. And so if I had to go back, if I could turn back the hands of time, even just 2 years, I probably would have slowed my roll on a couple things and just taken things a little bit easier, because I think it takes a little bit of time to see how things are going before you can decide whether or not it's going right or wrong. You have to see how it's actually going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you have to bring your personality into it day one, but I think that some of those things take a lot of time, and that's just my perspective. And I say that in respect to this conversation with Donna, but any new like leader in a community, I think it just takes a long time to get your feet on the ground, to understand like where you're at, and before you can start making progress.
Would you say this is a good retirement job for you? I mean, you're still a young guy, but
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think that being a police chief in a town like Newport's a retirement job. So if you're going to ask me what a retirement job is, a retirement job, in my humble opinion, is a place where like,
the sheriff's department.
no, it's a place where you can go though, and park your butt in a chair and eat donuts and drink coffee all day, and it's probably a smaller, much more lower pace, slower
It's
moving.
like an over 55 community that needs.
Yeah, maybe
Security guard there kind of thing.
something like that, right? Yeah, Newport's a great town. Make no mistake. I love Newport. The PD is good. Like this is an awesome place to work, but by no means is it a retirement job. I mean, you have to have some energy, and I think if I'm having any successes at all here, it's because I'm young enough and I have some energy and I'm able to like get out and do things and interact with people. And I'm not just spending all day eating donuts and drinking coffee, much to my chagrin.
You're definitely higher energy because you're everywhere. I had a text yesterday. It's like my son's like, there's 3 police officers in the cafeteria and the superintendent, and I'm like, he's like, oh, Chief Wilmot's one of them. I was like, oh. So I texted him, like, oh, he's in the cafeteria, and I asked you if you were hungry, and you're like, yeah,
I'm
hungry,
always.
but
I am where the food is. I am where the food is.
Exactly.
So, then last night I went to the Citizen of the Year banquet. More food.
Awesome.
I got to sit with the Cronus's and the Maxfields, and what an awesome event that was.
Yeah, we were saying how we really want to make sure we go next year. And we talked a little bit earlier on the show about it, and
super cool. They gave the award to the Citizen of the Year, Nonprofit of the Year, and the Business of the Year, and then they gave 4 awards to 4 students. It was cool. Again, just it's heartwarming. You know what I mean? And like lots of standing ovations, just all positive. Everything's great. Like.
We do a lot of cool things in Newport.
We do.
We really do. Like,
yeah.
I know we've had that conversation before. Like, Ari's doing stuff like that in Newport. That's just cool. Like that you just wouldn't expect. And
block party coming up, Brewfest coming up. There's just we have right before we get on the air, I was talking to the principal about the prom parade this weekend. So, and that's just that brings out the best of us,
Yeah.
Prom
awesome.
parade.
No, it's really cool.
But where I grew up, that wasn't. Our prom was, I want to say, 40 miles away from where I lived.
Yeah.
So it was like you go there. I don't know. Like this is everything. It seems like revolves around the Common, the downtown, Main Street, which makes it feel.
Yeah,
the whole community is involved.
It's at the airport now, in one of the big hangars there, and they did that last year because of COVID. And then I guess it's really, really cool. Like they keep it open. It's like it's more space. It's so they used to do it at the Opera House, but now they still do the drive up there, so people can still get that. But
like the Grand March.
Yes,
and they had like I don't know if they're going to do it this year, but in years past they've had like grandstand seating out on Main Street, and so the kids come up and they usually showcase some pretty unique vehicles. They've had all kinds of different vehicles over the years, from I don't know, military vehicles to horses, and they just have all kinds of cool vehicles, and it's just a neat little Newport tradition. As I've said before, I went to high school at Stevens, and we didn't have a thing like that. But it's Newport's thing, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
The state got that road all fixed out there. They're going to be good and smooth. These girls will walk across.
They're working on it.
I see them out there.
I wouldn't say it's all fixed, but they're working on it.
But it's it's going to be what it is, I guess. So what else is new and exciting?
Oh man, there's just so much going on. I don't know. You should see my desk right now. I'm a pretty organized person. My desk usually looks like your table here, but it is a jumbled mess right now.
Appreciate you taking the time to come in here and talk to us.
No problem. It's my pleasure. I'm
sorry I didn't bring donuts. Up here. I'll have to keep this in mind.
Yeah, and if we're going to be doing this in the afternoon, I don't know when you air, but if we're going to be doing it in the afternoon, definitely could use a post lunch donut. So just saying. If you're not going to pay me to come on the show, then you can at least feed me.
We'll definitely get some donuts.
Yeah, if you're not going to pay me to come on the show, can you at least feed me?
Yeah.
He feeds me.
This
all
is
the
your
time.
house.
You get in there and whip something up for us real quick.
Yeah. Your wife's usually around, and she's not around today, so I don't get to eat today. I look forward to Thursday and Friday because she's around, so we usually get fed. Steve doesn't feed me the other days.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nikki takes pretty good care of us.
Yeah.
As does Andrea.
Yep.
She brought us
She's
a
not
nice sandwich
busy.
yesterday.
Yeah, that's right.
It's pouring out.
It's raining out hard, yeah.
Yeah, we had a tornado the other night.
So that's pretty crazy.
See that?
Yeah, that was really crazy. What they say, like 1,000 trees or something got knocked down.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a video that. Have you seen the video yet?
From
You
Route
gotta
12.
watch
I'm
it.
not on Facebook.
It's on YouTube.
Is it? I'll check it out.
You better be on YouTube.
I'm on YouTube.
So,
I'm one of our watchers.
I always
Bump the numbers up.
We were all together actually when that was going on
Yeah, at the
we were.
at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yeah. So you tell everyone why you're there if they didn't watch it.
Yeah, so this is National Police Week. The 15th is May 15th is National Peace Officer Memorial Day. It was signed into law in 1962 by John F. Kennedy, and so it basically we're honoring the police officers who lost their lives not just in the last year, but over time. And so, as is tradition, the Newport Board of Selectmen the last several years has done a proclamation, basically thanking us for what we do and helping us honor those fallen officers. So I accepted a proclamation on behalf of the police department on Monday night. It was very nice of the selectmen and some very kind words that they had to say. So they did that at the beginning of the meeting, and I was there to accept the award, and then I left. And you guys stayed for the rest of it.
Yeah, we stayed.
That was a busy day for you.
Yeah, man, they've all been they've just been busy days lately. Yep. Don't know what to say about
Yeah, I
that,
don't
but
know.
yeah.
It's gonna get hot again.
I'm timid, so I'm not going to say, but
Yeah.
it's in the newspapers.
Yeah. What's in the newspapers? The busyness?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be hot this weekend.
Yeah, 90, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. Does things get crazier when it gets hot, or how does it? Is there any sort of cycle to anything here, or is it just?
Nikki says that I'm going to interject myself here, but
Yeah.
Nikki says on a full moon, things get crazier at the.
Yeah,
In her
I've
business.
heard about the full moon thing, and there could be some truth to that. I think that there's some truth to the fact that when it's warmer, you have more people outside, and by virtue of having more people outside, there's more interaction. When you have more interaction, you're gonna have more negative interaction, and blah 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 blah. I think the extremes, so when it's high 90s, 100 degrees, or negatives, it actually keeps people in more, so you're not going to see as much of that. I tend to think actually that the spring and fall tend to be a little bit busier. I don't really know why. From a anecdotally, from a police standpoint, I really like early fall because by the end of summer, I'm going to say this cautiously, but we're sick of dealing with kids that aren't in school. It's it's time to go back to school.
Right,
You know
you're
what
exhausted.
I mean? Yeah,
It's
yeah, you have parenting issues that you're dealing with. You've got kids just out being kids, and you're dealing with kid type things. And it seems like once school starts again, at least for a bunch of hours out of the day, they're sort of corralled in one location, and then you have sports and stuff like that. So.
See, this is what the town could have done, and then we should do if going forward with the rec center. You could have just said that to everyone that the importance of the rec center is to keep kids out of trouble, especially during the summer, so they're not doing things making your life more complicated.
Yeah, and I mean, we say that sort of half jokingly, but it's
Right.
true though, right?
Right.
Recreation activities definitely keep kids out of trouble. They instill good lessons and values into us in terms of being part of a team and winning and losing graciously, and sort of giving yourself to something bigger than yourself, and So I'm a huge fan of all things like athletics or recreation or just something other than yourself, whether it be, participating in the band or participating in other extracurricular activities. Like, I think that the kids that do those things consistently are the kids that you're going to find have greater success in life. Would you agree
I
from your
agree.
time? I mean,
Yeah.
you went to West Point. We've talked about this every time I've been up here, but and you were super involved in everything when you were a kid, right?
I try to be, yeah.
I suspect very much that in your class at West Point, most of the kids were like that too. You're not going to find like a singular focused person like, I just
No.
had a 4.0 and a 1600.
There's
right?
a couple of those. There are a couple.
Yeah, like one or two
Yeah.
maybe. And it's probably because they come from a long line of West Point grads, right?
Or something, or they know somebody.
Yeah,
'Cause,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that stuff happens, but pretty much everybody there is a type A personality. Wants to be in charge or on a winning team, or whatever it is that we're doing. It's very competitive.
Yeah. And like you could be probably, the best, athlete or the best musician or the best student or the best insert whatever here when you were in school, and you go there and
Yeah, you're just
you're humbled.
you're very humble because
Yeah.
it's like, wait, I'm not as special as I thought I was.
I talked to somebody years and years and years ago who'd been like I think he was a sergeant at MIT police, and he was talking about some of the students who come. This was a long time ago, but some of the students who had gone to MIT. Right, MIT is like one of the best schools in the world
Right.
for math and engineering and sort of the technical schools, and these kids that go there are the best and the brightest in the world, and they get to MIT and they're just a number. And a lot of these kids have never just been a number. They've always been like, hail to you. You're just, your ability to do math is, and then they get to MIT and they're like, you're just a dude.
Yeah.
And they can't handle that. Like the pressure of being mediocre makes some of them crack,
Yeah, 'cause you've been told they're special,
their whole life.
and then
They're not special
they're
no more.
Not special in that crowd. When they leave, they'll be special again, maybe, perhaps.
That's a great segue into something. So this has nothing to do with police work, but I'm just kind of curious what the two of you think. So that's, you're special, you're special, you're special. We tell, I think, this generation or the generation, the millennial generation, we've been telling them that they're special. Then they get into the workforce and they're not special. So what do you think about that?
We have to stop. Like, we talk about this all the time. I actually talked about this earlier this week too, or I don't even know if it was this show we did earlier, but you are special to the people that love you, right? Your kids are special to you.
Yeah.
My kids are special to me. But they get this expectation when they go out in the real world. It's like, but I'm special. So it's almost like it's an elevating thing, right? It's like,
Right.
well, I'm special. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're just a worker like everybody else. Like, you're special to the people that love you and stuff. And I think it's kind of when all the heck is when I was, I think 13-ish is when every kid started to get a trophy for everything. It was like, everybody gets a trophy. There's no winners. And, and I'm like, yes, there are winners and losers in life, no matter what.
Yeah.
You can be the best at whatever and be horrible at something else, but that's okay because you got to just excel at what you're good at. And I feel like we're setting these kids up to fail in a way, like to keep putting in their head, like, you're so special, you're this, you're that. And it's like, yes, you can be, and you are to your
Proliferating their fantasies.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Pretending that they're cats. Like, I don't have to participate. in
Yeah,
that.
I
We
don't
talked
wanna-
about that today. But
Did you already?
Yeah,
Yeah, I could talk for hours about that, and I don't really want to.
yeah.
It's
I didn't really want to either because I'm timid. But
here we go.
at the same time, it's
allegedly.
but like we're proliferating a fantasy. And like, so even if it's the family that does it, and then they go out in the real world, and I'm like, you're not a cat, you're a person.
Right.
Like,
And we have to close a business deal.
right.
And I'm now not going to close a business deal with you because you're a cat. I'm going to close a business deal with Tim because he's a person.
Right.
And, good on you for having the courage to do that, or if you have the whatever you want to call it to go out there and play kitty. But at the end of the day, man, I'm uncomfortable with that, so I'm going to close the deal with Tim.
And it's only natural.
Yeah.
Because
It's so weird. I don't even know.
human
Like,
behavior. It's like a study in human behavior.
or I have to. Yeah, it's just weird. I don't even get it anymore. Like, sometimes I really question like what the hell's going on in the world, because I'm like, yeah, you're special to your parents. You're special, but the other thing, like accountability wise. So earlier this year, like we were talking about TikTok, and because there's a baby formula shortage right now, and I had found this meme thing earlier. It was like girls on TikTok that were like eating baby formula, and someone was like, "Well, maybe this is why a shortage," which was kind of a joke, but at the same time, like, well, maybe there's some stupid people doing kind of that stuff, right? Like the Tide Pod thing.
Oh, yeah.
But then earlier this year was like the challenge to like destroy the bathrooms, which happened in Newport, and we were talking about that. And it's like an accountability thing, because if those kids don't get in trouble and if they're not held accountable, guess what? If they're 18 and they go into the courthouse and destroy their bathrooms because it's funny, you're going to go to jail. You're going to get in trouble. So we have to stop letting these kids feel like, oh, it's okay because you're just a kid. Well, no, because at some point it's going to switch real soon, and you're going to be held to account, hopefully at least, in a court system where you have to answer to a judge like, why did you do that? I thought it was funny. Well, guess what? Well, here's 60 days in jail. Is that funny? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I'm gonna just say carefully, but it's not just that those kids may not be held to account when they're younger, because I think if you were to look back 30, 40, 50 years, like, yeah, when they turn 18, maybe they are going to be held in jail for 60 days. But the reality is today, they're not going to be held in jail for 60 days. I think everything has changed. It's not just, the discipline at the school or, the juvenile justice system. The whole system has changed from what it used to be. And I think we talked about this last time I was on, about like getting in trouble and your parents, disciplining you and all this other stuff. I think society has changed, and
That's what the superintendent said, because we were talking about unpotty trained kids showing up for kindergarten, and I was like, "Is that a policy that the school set?" Like, I've never heard of such a thing.
yeah,
Because when Zeta had to meet certain requirements before she could go to preschool or kindergarten.
all right, you couldn't go to school unless you couldn't go to kindergarten unless you're potty trained. That was a rule.
It was like a rule. But he was like, no, it's a societal thing. It's nothing that we've done. That's just society changing its...
And I feel like there's this balance that we have to do, like, as sort of leaders in the community or whatever, where we have to figure out, like, where is society at, and where are they going? But if you try to keep shoehorning back to what it used to be, it ain't gonna work, Right. So one good example in law enforcement is like, a lot of people look at us as like, we are a paramilitary organization. You have discipline, you have a sort of a chain of command. You follow that, chain of command. And to some degree that's correct, but like, in 2022, we are much softer, and I assume probably even the military is too, to some degree, in 2022. But you just can't like scream at somebody and expect to have results anymore. It just doesn't work. That whole concept of like servant leadership, and we are here to serve you as the worker. How can we make your stay here more enjoyable? How can we make it? And that wasn't used to be how it was, right? Like, you got a job and basically we were paying you for your time. I was buying your time. So when you were here, you did everything that I asked you to do. And it just doesn't simply work like that. So we have to figure out how to balance like where we used to be versus where we are today, and try to get the most out of people that way,
I feel like some of that's it's not debatable, but it's almost like not been tried fully yet, because I feel like, yeah, you're right. Like nowadays, as an employee, you're more like, they demand this and they demand this and demand this, and like, well, if not, I'm going to go to another job. But I feel like over time, it's like, well, we're going to see actually if this does work, because it may not work, and you may be like just going through job after job because you just don't want to.
Well, that's interesting.
Do your
Netflix
job.
Recently canceled 2 shows and sent a letter out to their employees after the whole "we're not going to work because we don't like the comedian that told the joke."
Yep.
And so now Netflix is like, well, have a nice career, then go somewhere else. Like, we're supporting our creative talent.
Yeah.
And they've pulled these, I don't know, progressive is the right word for it.
Yeah.
It's like couple woke shows. They just pulled them off. They're not going to air them. Probably because there's a shift there where they're trying to find that balance of, all right, we gave you a little too much leeway because you're
Right.
not really in control.
Yeah.
We appreciate that you work for us, but
Yeah.
if what our mission set is to provide entertainment for a whole full spectrum of people
Yeah.
that may disagree with you, then maybe
Yeah.
you need to go find another job somewhere else. So
Correct.
I think that there's that balance is slowly finding its way.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, and not to argue with you, but I definitely think that when you're in an organization that has a little bit bigger of a margin, that you can be a little bit more cavalier, I guess, in some of those decisions. You might be able to say, okay, you want to quit, see you later, bye. Because there's going to be somebody right behind you to fill in your spot. There's going, or we can just absorb that work with other workers that we already have in the organization. I can tell you here at Newport PD, we don't have that type of a margin.
Right.
So if I just decide to draw a red line and hold that line and say, let's say, for example, I'm just going to make up something arbitrarily. If you don't show up to work, 20 minutes early every day, freshly shaven and standing at the position of attention, that you're going to receive progressive discipline up to and including termination. Like if I hold that line and I have to start firing people, pretty soon I'm going to be the only one out there shagging calls. You know what I mean? So like,
And it's hard to maintain that too. 'Cause
Yeah.
you're going to have car trouble one day.
yeah, and that's that's an arbitrary thing.
Right.
But my point is that like, we don't have a very wide margin.
Correct.
Right. So I have to be a lot more nimble in the things that I decide, like I'm going to hold a red line on this, or I'm not going to hold a line on that, or, can I be a little bit more flexible, or can I not? And, again, that we don't have in law enforcement, and not just in Newport, I think as a profession, there is no line of people waiting to come in anymore. There's no like, oh, well, we don't like Steve, so we're going to get rid of him because we know, like, as soon as you go out the front door, Tim's waiting at the back door to come on the job. It doesn't exist. Like, if you leave, we're short.
Right. But I think it sends a message to society.
It does.
Writ all with the whole, yes, we've tried this, it's not really working.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have your opinions, but once it crosses this boundary, then you need to look for. So that's when we're talking about society.
Yeah.
So yeah, the margins aren't there for most.
Yeah, I mean,
most
that's
businesses
a
can't do
macro
that.
and micro type of a
but
conversation.
but it helps to change the conversation a little bit so
Yeah.
that it's not all. You have to think just like all of us, or
Right.
we're not going to support you, or you know what I mean. It's like we support a whole gamut of things, so you can't be myopic and only people
Correct.
that you like.
Yeah.
So it sends a message. So it's not going to work for you, but then it helps.
It does
Send the
help down the
message
line,
out, yeah.
right?
Right.
If down the line,
It sends a message to everybody else. Like I can't go in there and be like, it's only this.
in
or-
my industry, if NYPD does the same thing that Netflix did, down the line, that may trickle down to like, oh, in the policing profession,
Right.
you can't do A, B, and C because look, like these bigger organizations are starting to say no, and then all of a sudden it comes down to we get a little Newport, and we can start to say like, yeah, we're going to hold the line on that, and that just becomes the expectation. You know what I'm
Right.
saying for the whole industry, if you will.
It's tough in your profession because, like you said, there's not like a lot of people, waiting to come in, and I think teaching would be probably another one that's pretty similar now. It's like, who wants to teach when you have to deal with the crap that you. We had a story earlier this week about the Enfield principal is going to be getting done at the end of this year, and by the story and everything we've read, it was like this dude's great. Like he's a really good principal, and he's a huge asset. But he was just like the social stuff they have to deal with now that's so far beyond being a teacher or an administrator. He's like, I just can't do it anymore. I'm just like burnt out. Like, and we've talked like the whole thing, like kindergartners not being potty trained. It's like,
Yeah, that's
what the
crazy.
hell are these
Man.
parents doing? Like,
Yep.
so it's gotten a lot harder for certain professions, and your profession, and just, let's face it, the last few years in mainstream media has just made cops the enemy, which they're not. You're just people like everybody else that
Right.
you have a job that your job is to make people accountable to the law, which without you would just be craziness, right?
Yeah.
So that obviously is hurt your field for sure. And so it's a lot harder for your profession to be like, well, no, you cross this line, you're done. Well, obviously, if they legally cross the line, you're going to be like, I don't care how short I am, you're out.
Yeah, right.
But, if they're like, hey, I need this day off, and, then you might have to be like, all right, well, But I think most of you guys really work as a team anyways, and we're really lucky in Newport, I'd say.
I think so. Yeah. I think part of the issue, whether it be education or law enforcement or whatever is, and this isn't a problem, it's sort of a downstream effect of this expectation that everybody has access to everything all the time, right? Like we have access to everything all the time on our phones, right? So why wouldn't we expect that we have access all the time to everything that our teachers are doing, that the school is doing, and that our police officers are doing? It's just they want for more and more and more and more. And so to sort of piggyback from what you said about the principal in Enfield, like I'm not sure, but I assume that when he came on the job, years and years ago, he was able to teach the students that, the kids went home, they had their homework, there was probably a twice a year or once a year meeting between the teacher and the parent, unless there was something bad that was going on. But now it's like, there's constant access. There's Power School, there's like daily updates, there's robocalls, there's text messages and emails going back and forth. There's just so much access, which drives up expectations, and then expectations are in conflict with one another, and here we go. Now we're starting to have trouble.
And part of his was just the lack of participation from parents.
Really?
Like he actually mentioned that. Like no one shows up to the school board meetings, and they're a good school, or the district is one of the top in the state. So it was just interesting to read his take, because I think he's won awards. I think he's been the principal for almost 4 years now.
It's been a little while, yeah. I mean, it sounded like he was
he's disappointed that he's leaving, but he doesn't want to get so burned out that he'll never come back. So he's taking a hiatus because he's got to regroup, and probably, like we were talking about, is reorient himself to the playing field that he's on, with all that information, with the difference in the social progression of like potty training, for instance, or whatever. Like he didn't mention that, but there's all kinds of different things that he's probably got to wrap his head around and find out. All right, so how do I change my point of view without compromising my morals and values?
I think the other thing is that,
and this is all speculation.
Yeah, the hope here, right, is that as younger people get into these professions, they've lived their whole life with this level of access, with these expectations, and so when they get into the workforce, that's not new for them. You know what I mean? For a 25-year-old to come into education and have these expectations, or this level of buzzword here, transparency, for example, in law enforcement, we were fairly opaque in the way that we operated for a long time, right? Until, we started to have some big problems, like get national or world news, and now there's like this big call for reform and transparency and all this other stuff. But younger officers or younger teachers that are just starting to enter the professions now, they've lived their whole life with this expectation that everything is transparent, that they have immediate access.
They don't mind wearing
they don't mind. Yeah. In fact, they don't know any different.
Right.
They don't mind people questioning them. But you go to a guy who's 45, 50 years old, who's been a police officer for 30 years, having people question what they're doing, like that is foreign. You know what I mean?
Right.
But for a 25-year-old, that person, I'm speaking generally here, but has been taught from the beginning, from the very young age, to question authority. You know what I mean? So when he or she is in a position of authority, it's not out of the norm,
It's almost like the body cams now for police officers, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like originally you guys got body cams. Was that more for like purposes of evidence or court and stuff? Like if you had a traffic stop and the person was all irate and everything, and I'm just assuming that that's kind of why you got them. But now I feel like it's more to protect you guys, because you guys get accused of something. Like, well, I got the body camera right here. This dude was going all off and, being a jerk and whatever. And I mean, did you find that it's more now almost protecting of you, or is it kind of just, honestly, it's for both of you?
Well, so, when they first came out, I mean, we've had cruiser in-car cameras for decades now, right? Body cameras have only become a thing over the last 10 or 15 years. But when they first came out, and you'll hear this more and more from everybody that has them, like they protect us way more often than they hurt us. And, there is a transition. I can attest that when I started for, 15 years, I didn't wear a body camera, and then I did. There's a transition when you start to think that like everything that you do and say is on camera, you act different. And I don't think that that's in a bad way. It's just different. I mean, if you and I are having a conversation and someone sticks a camera in your face, you're going to act different.
Right.
Period. It's just the way it is. I do think a lot of the people now that are transitioning to that world, it's almost like everybody else is doing it. Why aren't you? You know, if you get into a use of force situation and you don't have a body camera now, you're answering questions about why you don't have one. So I think a lot of people now are going to it just because it's like an industry standard. And if you're not there, you're having to explain why you're not there. So, but I do think in the beginning it was an evidentiary reason. When we started to transition to body cameras, I don't know if it was for evidence or for our own protection. I can tell you that getting them when we transitioned to them in Claremont, because I've had them in Newport ever since I've been here. When we transitioned to them in Claremont, it was a big transition. It took a lot of, like, there was some growing pains and stuff like that, but they helped us 9 times out of 10. They helped us overhurting us.
Change is hard in any
It
organization.
is, yeah.
There's people who study it and try to become masters of that, actually change management in an organization. That's a big change.
Yeah.
I tell you, like, if a good show, if you want to watch this, I've watched probably all the episodes of it, but there's a show called Body Cam on ID channel, something like that. And if you really want to know what a police officer goes through, because let me tell you, there's a few of the videos on there, like they're in shootouts, and there's been ones with the cops have been hit, and you want to know what you go through, well, you know, that your guys go through, guys and gals go through every day. Like, that's something, like, that's real. That's intense. Like, you seriously watch it and you're like, your heart's in your throat. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? Like, there's been some, you got to check it out. Like, and that's it's a body cam. It's all it is body cam footage. And some of it's normal, easy stuff, you know, drunk driver. And other times it's like shootout things and you're like, holy crap. So it's a good perspective to put you in their shoes to be like, this is what they go through. You know, because a lot of times people stand back and pass judgment on a police officer. You know, you made a decision in a split second. But this, like, watch this show. It's just a regular show on TV, and it will give you a whole different perspective of how quick things can happen and decisions that, you know, you guys have to make, you know?
Yeah, and, you know, there's an interesting piece that was done because right after there was some use of force incidents in the national news that got really criticized. There was some folks that did a use of force simulator, and they shot absolutely everybody. And because it's pretty easy to look at a video and say, like, you know, you didn't see this, you didn't see that, you didn't see this, but, like, you don't understand what stress does to you in an event, right? Like when you start to get tunnel vision or tunnel hearing and you start to, like, close in on something, or even you're told by dispatch that, like, oh, you're going to this house for this particular reason. You start to think about what that might be, and so on and so forth. And it's so different when you actually handle a call than when you hear about it later or when you watch it. And there's Supreme Court precedent, U.S. Supreme Court precedent about use of force and how you don't look at it with the hindsight of 20/20 vision. You're supposed to look at it in the officer's point of view at that very moment. We had a incident yesterday afternoon where our guys ended up getting called for an assault down on Main Street, and the subject had assaulted an acquaintance of his. Guy was all bloody. The officers got there. There was a belief that he was under the influence of alcohol or something else, and he gave them a run for their money. And ultimately, it was 3 of them. Big guy, you know what I mean? You watch that, and you're like, if you were just a regular run-of-the-mill person that had walked by that and you saw that happening, they'd be like, I never want to deal with anything like that. And we deal with it every single day. You know, we don't have a use of force every single day, but we deal with people like that every single day. Like, it's the underbelly of society every single day.
You see the worst of the worst. I mean,
but we all see the best of the best.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yep. We do see, it's not all doom and gloom, but yeah, we see the worst. We see people at their worst moments, I should say, you know?
Right.
So
yeah, I did a ride along 15 years ago to try to give us perspective of what's going on outside of the base, probably where some of our soldiers live. It was like an episode of Reno 911 as far as like the craziness, almost comical in hindsight, but it was intense just going along and then like somebody getting stabbed with a fork in the back of the head, like it's just a domestic dispute like one of them was. And the next thing you know, the wife pulls out a fork and just stabs her husband in the head while the police are sitting there interrogating him, trying to figure out what's going on. And it was just like in a matter of seconds that fork came out.
It went sideways, right?
Yeah, domestics are the most dangerous thing you guys deal with. Like,
yep.
You go and the guy just this is just hypothetical. The guy beats up his wife, and you're there to protect. Hey, whatever. And the next thing, the wife turns on you, and there's been a lot of officers shot and killed on domestics because
ambushed.
You just ambushed and crazy times, but. I know you got a meeting coming up, but
I'm good for a few more minutes. Yeah, I'm good. So I had a interesting sort of piggyback to that. I'm dating myself now. It's probably 10 or 12 years ago now. I got one of the guys that I went to the police academy with, who worked in a much smaller town, wanted to see what it was like in Claremont, and so he asked if he could come for a ride along, and he happened to pick like the right night, because you could come for a ride along sometimes and fall asleep in the car, right? Because the reality is, like, our job is like 90% boredom and 10% like sheer chaos. But sometimes people get interested, like they come for a ride along and they're like, see the console and see us stop cars and like all the gadgets in the car and the computer, and that's kind of neat, But if you're already a police officer and you kind of already understand that, like, you could be bored. But he picked the right night. Oh, we went from like one crazy thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And I remember I pulled up at one call, and we had gotten a call that some guy had gone to an acquaintance's house, kicked the door, and was pounding him. And sure enough, we got there, and the door was like on its hinges, and he was just standing over the top of the guy feeding him. And this kid that was riding with me, it looked like he'd seen a ghost. And we got the guy arrested, whatever. And I was like, dude, welcome to Claremont, man. Like, this is what it is. And he's like, I'm never working here. So.
Well, that's good though, right?
Because we don't want people that don't want to have fun. You know what I mean?
Well, so like
at the end of the day, police work's supposed to be fun. If you don't enjoy that, then don't come here.
But like for West Point, for example, like I would try to convince you not to go. Like, not necessarily not to go, but like you need to know exactly that you really aren't that free of a person, that your every minute is monitored in some form or fashion, down to your pay is monitored by someone. You know what I mean? So like you tell them these things because not everybody can handle that.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so people may think, oh, I want to go there, blah, 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 but you're not getting a normal college life. You're basically, your job is to go to school and to learn militarily. And so it's stressful and it's not easy.
Right.
And so you almost convince them not to come. And if they still want to come, then you're.
Yeah, and you don't want to find out, like, at your first domestic that you're not cut out for this kind of work.
I think that one of the things that we can fall in the trap of is, particularly now, like when we're short-staffed, is you get so hung up on, like, we got to hire somebody. So what you don't want to do is sell them a bill. You know what I mean? Be like, this is in my opinion, this is a great profession. This is a fun job. But like in my job, I feel it's my duty as the police chief to make police work fun for the people who work at Newport PD. Like, if I can keep police work fun for them and let them have fun doing their job, then like we're going to have a good police department. We're going to be, you know what I mean? Set high standards, but let them have fun. Because at the end of the day, police work is fun. But if we don't tell them what it really is right out of the gate, and that, like, hey, dude, you're going to have hard days. You're going to go to calls where you're going to see dead people. You're going to go to calls where you see people at their worst. People are going to call you every single name in the book. Like, there's going to be a lot of days that this job sucks, period. And like and this is not a rich town, right? This is a blue-collar, hard-hitting, working community. We make things here, we have a lot of good people here, but this is a tough town. And if you want to like roll your sleeves up and get dirty, we'd love to have you. You know what I mean? But Make no mistake, this is not just like kissing babies and like, doing all of like the
Barney
Mayberry,
Fife,
the Barney
guy.
Fife, the Mayberry stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, sure. Like I like to go into Coronas and eat a donut and have coffee and shoot the breeze with those guys. But at the end of the day, man, just not even 24 hours ago, we were rolling around the main street with a drunk guy that was beating people. So like,
That's the thing
giddy
that
up.
people don't realize too, is like they don't realize how much that goes on in Newport. They think it's just Newport. We're small, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, you kind of need to like start to wake up and pay attention that this happens here every day. Just ask the police officers; they'll tell you like something crazy's happening every day, or occasionally get those boring days like you say. But we have a great little town, but still, the support needs to go to the police department, the fire department, and because these guys are dealing with things every day. That's just because you live in your home and you don't see it, it's happening.
Yeah, we had. I mean, just yesterday we had some issues that you sort of talked about earlier in the morning at the school, and then we had an undercover operation that we were working on, having stemmed from an incident the night before in another community we were helping out, and then later in the afternoon we dealt with that arrest on Main Street that I was saying that ended up being a use of force incident. It was like, oh, by the way, we still haven't even gotten to like routine business. Okay, like this is what we're doing, short-staffed. That's every day. You know what I mean? So it's exciting. Police work is fun. We like doing it. Newport's a good community. Newport's a relatively safe community, but just like any community, we have our underbelly, and we are the ones that deal with the underbelly.
And thank you for that.
Yeah. So
Nice thing is, another week, Chief's here. We're here. We didn't get in trouble.
yeah.
He wasn't investigating us.
So until we meet again.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you at prom.
You will.
Are you gonna wear a nice get up, or are you gonna?
Yeah.
Just I'm looking at it.
Yep. This is it.
Do you ever put shorts on with your uniform?
Never.
No.
No, I
That's just a
I
bike
will,
cop thing?
No, I'll change some rules. Like I'm fine with tattoos. I'm fine with beards, whatever. If that's going to make them happy, I'm not going to draw the line there. Want to talk about a line I will draw? No shorts. I can't do it, man. Not shorts and a uniform is just not my thing.
So I could come and be the officer in the winter, but that's about it. I'd be like, I
That's
can't
what
do
makes
it.
Reno 911 so funny is Lieutenant Dangle with his cut-off
Mustache and shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic.
All right.
All right, man. Thanks.
Brent, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Tim and Steve Show. We'll see you tomorrow.